From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Well, good evening and welcome into Open Line. I'm Chuck Long, glad to be along with you for the next hour. One of my favorite hours coming up right now because we are asking the expert. We're talking about attorney Kevin Kennedy. This is Ask the Expert, and if ever someone is an expert in the field of law and the legal questions that you'll have, it's Kevin Kennedy, and we're so glad once again joining us live in person.
We are glad to be back. I'll shake your hand, Chuck. It feels like it's been so long, but we're loving being back on the set with you tonight.
Now, I think Taylor, our director, is going to need to shade the cameras a little bit.
Watch out.
This is bright.
I didn't know he was going to be lit up like this tonight, but he brings some fun and festivity to the set.
Absolutely. That's what we like. And, you know, I said this many times, that when you're here, this is when I get my pen ready because I take a lot of notes because I learn a lot. I said this is the University of Kevin that I'm going to.
You know, the truth is, Chuck, you really, when you have something that is good and can make a difference, you want to give it away. One of the great coaches said, learn your craft well and give it away for the rest of your life. And people say, why do you give it away? That's how you make your living. Well, the truth is there's more than enough. And we are blessed. You and I both are blessed. So I love to share. I can see the anxiety off people's faces each and every day. You know, in my heart, there's a lot of people that'll be at my office in the morning. We open before anybody. And they say, well, why do you open, sir? Why don't you sleep late? Because that's really the only way I can box them in to get to see everybody. I hate to turn people away. But if they needed the help, it's inside of us to want to help people. So tonight, you're just really fulfilling what I love to do. And, you know, I believe that Bible, you're going to reap what you sow. So when we're sowing, trying to help others in our hour of need, we're going to reap, Chuck.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was just thinking as you were talking, you know, the Olympics start, you know, this weekend. A lot of people will be watching. But you think about those athletes. They train and they train and they train, and that's how they get to the Olympics.
Yes.
It's the same way with your profession. You train and you train and you train, and then the experience that you guys have, that's how you're able to help so many people with such a broad range of areas that you do help. And as we always say, this is where you can call in with those legal questions that you may have. Not only does it help you, but it helps a lot of other people that are actually listening. They hear those questions and they're like, I wondered about that too. So if you have one of those legal questions, and it doesn't matter, like I said, it can be from A to Z, any place in that spectrum, just call us at 737-7587, 737-7587. Get on the line with us. We love to hear those questions, comments. You're welcome to those. Kevin, are you seeing any particular kind of situation?
Well,
lately?
I will share this with you. Everywhere we go, whether it's in the street, at the mall, on the road, people's feelings are on their sleeve, and it takes very little to set someone off. So yes, we see that more and more, and you say, well, what were you thinking about? And of course, we see people trying to reach out and have relationships, and so there's a whole rash, but well, I met her. Well, how'd you meet her? I met her online. And then they bring them home, they get aggravated, they say leave, and then when they get ready to leave, they call the police, then they're charged. So you're really inviting trouble to your home when you participate in that. So what is the word to the wise? If you know that everyone is very agitated, extremely jumpy, and then when you get to the courts, they're the same way. So we're in a very unique time, so we should do a little more thinking before we do. You know, over my career, I count it's like 143 lawyers that have trained under me, that hired and trained over the years, 37 years. What does that really mean? It means I tried to teach them, if you smell trouble, get away. If you smell trouble, all these alarms ought to go. And for the fathers and mothers that are listening to us, and the grandfathers and grandmothers, keep teaching, keep preaching. And if you know that's a danger zone, that orange light should be going off in our head. And we talk about anxiety. Some anxiety is good because it alerts you, this is dangerous. They talk about one of the best ways to have traffic control is to have blue lights in the rear view. Yes, it'll bring you to reality in a New York City. We don't want that. So that's some of the things that we're seeing, lots of domestic assault. And what else I saw, it's moved from domestic assault to a felony aggravated domestic assault. And remember this, anybody can get charged for anything at any time. Doesn't mean that you're guilty, but you're going to have to pay the bond. And if you don't pay the bond, Chuck, what happens? You're arrested, they put the bond on you too high, and you can't get through. What happens? Do you just sit in jail?
Don't want to,
but you do. That's
absolutely
the reality.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things too. You know, I think there's a lot of things that you can learn, and I know a lot of you have called in and you've written in and you've told us that you've learned from this show. Not only that, but there's so many things that you can learn so that if you get in a particular situation,
yes,
a traffic stop, if you're dealing, you know, with estate planning and you're dealing with some family members
yes,
that are not cooperating, if you're trying to go up against the insurance company, something's happened to you in a car accident or at the hospital, this is where you can ask those questions. Feel free, any of those questions, they're all okay to ask. We can go right to our phone lines right now.
Here we go.
All right, so caller, you are with us. We're glad that you're with us this evening. Do you have a question or comment for Kevin?
Yes, I may have to file a lawsuit or file a complaint, I guess, myself. And if I do so, the other party is in another county, and I would argue that the venue should be in my county because that's where the precipitating incident occurred. And I'm just wondering legally what determines appropriate venue for any lawsuit?
Well, any time that we have the cause of action arises out of Davidson County, that is the appropriate venue. You know, do you have jurisdiction and then do you have venue? They, all the time in these criminal cases, they say we want to change a venue because they feel like the publicity is too much and a person can't get a fair trial. But if you had a car wreck in Davidson County, the appropriate place is to file there. Now, the defendant may actually live in Sevier County, but where the accident took place, you can sue them there. And as a general rule, you could pick that form, or you could also pick where they're living. I always like to file in the county where it is. Avoid all the interpretations. Good time, Chuck. Remember, everything is up to interpretation. Up to it. I had a lawyer say, and they presented me with a beautiful argument. I said, hello, come in. I love it. So the next day I had that. So I hit it with one of the judges and I said, how about this? Well, he said, I don't think so. Okay, I agree. And we proceeded. We won the trial anyway. Well, this lawyer said, well, you should have done this, Kevin. I heard a lawyer say, when any lawyer can critique another lawyer's work, he can say, you didn't ask enough questions. Kevin, you asked too many questions. Or Kevin, you should have done this. You should have called this witness. It's hindsight's always 20/20. But this lawyer was saying, you should use this right now. Well, guess what? Just because it's the law does not necessarily mean, and you've got a few cards to play. And so when you play it and it doesn't work, then you're in round two immediately. So that's why they have appeals. That's why people say, well, I'm going to try this, if it doesn't, I'm going to appeal it. Well, some people don't have the resources. So you've got to use your best judgment in the trenches every day. What's the word I'm sharing? Just because it's in that TCA, don't always rely on it, because the other judges or the other lawyers can say there's an exception and here's our argument. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what happens. When you go into the fight, no one really knows who's going to win or lose. We can anticipate we've got some good moves, but there's always a counter that you may not have thought.
Good to know. All right, thanks so much for calling in. We're going to go right back to the lines right now. Linda is on the line with us. Good evening, Linda. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Pardon me?
Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
Kevin, hi, this is Linda.
Hi.
And I was asking about, I'm on a workman's comp case, have been since '06, and it's open medical for life. And I have had, I've had 2 back surgeries. The doctor did it, and he messed it up the first time. I had to go back in there the second time, and I'm having to go through this again. But I am afraid to go back to that workman's comp doctor, and I talked to my adjuster, and she says, well, that's who you pick. That's who you pick. That's the only thing I've been getting out of them for 3 or 4 years now. What can I do?
Well, one of the things that's always available to you is the Tennessee Department of Workers' Compensation. You can call them and discuss your problem with them. That's why I always tell everyone, hire a lawyer on your workers' comp case. Why? We already know they're just going to pay this amount, and then we'll have to give the lawyer percentage. It's far too complicated. I'll say it again. And you leave a lot of areas for interpretation. So, and if you're going to get these things worked out, then get them in writing. Your lawyer can help get that in writing when you settle. If you settle it on your own, one of the worst cases, I remember, I'm still scarred from it. I had a gentleman, and he was at the church, and he said, you know, Kevin, they put it in writing. I said, please don't go down that route. He said, they put it in writing. Well, guess the rest of the story. You won't forget it. I was leaving church one day, and he was standing at my door, knocking on the window, and he was crying after he had settled his case. And he said, Kevin, they didn't do what they said they were going to do. I wanted to say, I told you so just a few weeks earlier, but I refused to do that in the church parking lot. So I told him to come, but it makes it really hard, and many times it's res judicata, means the thing has already been settled. So get the advice. If I were in it, if my children were in it, I would hire a lawyer each and every time. You know, I told you we've been involved in a car wreck since we've been dealing these issues. First thing across your mind is you've got to protect yourself. Teach your children to protect themselves. And the insurance companies will all tell you, even if you had a wreck, don't get out and admit all these things, because your insurance will have $25,000 in liability. Well, guess what? They won't more than $25,000 to settle it. And I teach people, if you know it's bad, you can count on it. They're coming. They're coming. And so, you know, one of my neighbors' home burnt down during the 4th of July weekend. Terrible. And I pulled over there. You want to hear what my prayer was? I just prayed that the insurance company didn't fight them. Because they were saying, well, you know they've got insurance. Here we go. But I'm telling you, I know they're going to fight you like crazy. And I want them to get a lawyer. Yeah, because could it cost something? It can cost you a whole lot more if you didn't have one.
And that's what people often find, is that they think, you know, getting a lawyer is going to be expensive, but it's going to be a lot more expensive if you don't get a lawyer.
Come in, Chuck. Yeah. You remember, I've told it before, I spoke to a wealth management lawyer, one of the richest lawyers out of Kentucky. I said, what'd you learn after 40 years? He said, the richest people hire the best lawyers and the best accountants. He told me that years ago, and I know it's true. So even when you're spending big money, it's still a great investment. This is the American system, and this is what it's caused us to do. And so you need to look after yours and your own children the best you can. Thank you for the call.
Absolutely. We appreciate that very much, Linda. We are going to take a short break, but when we get back, we'll get back to more callers right here on Open Line. You're watching Open Line here on News Channel 5 Plus.